Hey, college wrestling fans, this is Johnny Thompson, number one. And if I got a treat for you today, I have a former NJCAA wrestling coach and what is and has been to this day the only NJCAA program in the state of Alabama. Please welcome to the show, Coach Ron Steube. Thank you for being here today, Coach.
Thank you, Stephen. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I appreciate being given the opportunity to be here and represent Alabama on a little bit of wrestling. But this is a great thing that you do. I love following your writings and everything else.
Well, it's very much appreciated. So, Chattahoochee Valley Community College began their wrestling program in 1978. Unfortunately, you guys were discontinued in 1980, but in 2 seasons, you guys put together a 23-3 dual meet record. A lot of those, may I add, were against bigger division schools, including Division I schools. Then on top of that, at the Southeastern Regional, you guys take runner-up honors in both seasons. Talk about how you were able to establish that level of high success in such a short amount of time.
I was able to put together a bunch of scrappy guys that wanted to show people they could do what they could do. Many of them were overlooked and not recruited. And I wanted to give them an opportunity, and I was able to do that. They just wanted to win. They didn't care what circumstances were. And there was a program, real quick, Steve, to back it up. The program at CV had been started 2 years prior to that. It was fledgling going along, and the president decided he wanted to get into a big time, up the scholarships, and off we went. So I was also late coming in recruiting. I didn't get the job till May. So I had to find some guys in a hurry. Fortunately, through my refereeing, I knew a lot of kids that had either not committed or whatever. So that's pretty much it. They just weren't, they were willing to work hard, and I put them through a New Jersey workout, and they responded, So,
I alluded to this in my first question. I want to focus on it a little bit more. You guys, during those seasons when you were head coach, you feared nobody. You took third place in the Mid-South tournament and then fifth place in the Sunshine Open. And you guys were against, and both of those tournaments are D1 and D2 tournaments, and you guys had individual champions and place winners. What did that feel like to know you guys could compete at such a high level like that?
it was pretty amazing, to be honest with you. I once again, they bought in, and if you knew where Chattahoochee Valley was in Phoenix City, not a lot to do around there. So we worked out a lot. So but they weren't scared of anybody. They had nothing but to lose. When you beat, but I even took them to the LSU Invitational. We're the only junior college there. We also, against the junior colleges, Brevard and Broward were nationally ranked. We knocked them off. I brought in to Phoenix City the defending national champions, Lakeland Community College, out of Metro, Ohio. We were ahead 16-0, and they were in a little bit of shock, but they came back and beat us 33-16. But once again, you're only going to be as good as the level of competition you wrestle. We're also very fortunate that Tom Milkovich was over at Auburn at the time. And Tom allowed us to come in there and work out from time to time. He was a great mentor to me as well. I learned a lot from Tom. So that gave us a little bit of an edge right there, I think. Although we beat Auburn's JV team, so it's pretty good. But yeah, it was pretty cool. Georgia Tech was probably one of the most unique victories in that when I tried to get a dual meet my first year with Georgia Tech, the coach said that they'd been over there and they just shut them out. And and it wasn't worth the trip for them. And I tried to tell him, Coach, it's a different story now. Things aren't what they used to be. And he said, well, you're just not a caliber of competition right now, Coach. And maybe next year. And I said, well, we'll see you in the Mid-South. And so we did, and beat several of his guys pretty well. And so after the Mid-South, he was ready to schedule a dual meet. And so we did. And I put them up as our first duel of 1979. We went there and beat him 23-20. And he said, we have to do this again next year. And I said, I'll just have to think about it, Coach, because it's just not a caliber competition. So maybe that was a little cheesy, but you gotta, when you walk into a D1 school in a weigh-in, and the guys are leading you to the room, and you got a guy like Charlie Hurd walking up front, and the guy says, Chattahoochee High is your coach. That didn't sit well. And Hurd said, you're going to think high school when we leave.
That's pretty cool. Speaking of Charlie Hurd, he won you guys a Southeastern Regional Championship, goes on to wrestle at University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, was a three-time All-American for the Mocs there, and then in both 1984 and 1988, we're talking about an Olympic alternate.
Yeah.
And then later on in his career, becomes a great coach. I know he was at Waynesburg for a while.
Right.
Talk about Charlie and what he meant to the Pirate program.
Oh, Charlie was such a catalyst. I mean, a 118-pounder starting off. And I must say, my 118 and 126, which was James Bryant, which he and Charlie going at each other in the room, was something to see. Bug had actually won the Sunshine Open and took outstanding wrestler. He was really something. Alabama kid. But anyhow, Charlie was just such a catalyst, and those three guys, Charlie, James Bryant, and Charlie Jenkins, there was many a dual meet. We would jump out either 15-0, 18-0. They just boom, 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 and it was like a shock, Charlie, he was so exciting to watch and just so quick, and so aware of his balance and where he is. I didn't see him get taken down the whole time. I mean, so, unfortunately, Charlie got to the Nationals and had a bad tournament, and things at that time were bad overall. They had already told me, even prior to going to Nationals, back in maybe January, February, that their gun program is pretty hard to coach, pretty hard to keep from the guys. And I had Charlie and Marty with me on the jet, and they kept asking me about it, and I, they heard ramblings, and I wasn't going to hide anything from them. So it kind of bummed them both out. My bad, maybe, but I was pretty bummed out too.
Yeah. And I do want to get to that, but before I do, probably the most famous wrestler that you guys had on your team was future World Wrestling Entertainment Intercontinental Champion, World Wrestling Entertainment Tag Team Champion, The Rocker, my personal favorite professional wrestler, Marty Jannetty, was part of your program. Everybody in the world knows Marty and through professional wrestling, but before he got there, he was a three-time state qualifier, state of Georgia, comes for you guys, wins 2 Southeastern regional titles. Talk to us about Marty, the college wrestler.
Marty came from a high school program that didn't have a lot of background. Marty was the coach. Marty was the coach of the high school program. I knew their coach, a nice guy, over at Hardaway High School in Columbus, Georgia. But Marty finished 3rd 2 years back to back in high school. Marty is just a pure athlete. He moves like a 118-pounder. I mean, he wrestled 177 for me. He never gave me a minute's trouble. He knew not to cross the line. Pretty simple.
Surprising knowing him now.
Yeah, but I love
Yeah.
him to death. I love him to this day. I speak to him very regularly, and Marty's fought his demons, but he's also done a lot of good. And but as a college wrestler, I couldn't ask more from Marty. Marty put in the extra work. He wasn't afraid to stay after to learn more, to get somebody to drill with, just to learn better technique. And he wasn't a great technician, great on his feet, great high crotch, but he was so strong and quick. He overpowered guys. He went with 2 seconds to go against Lakeland. Pat Day, I'll never forget this, was returning runner-up from the year before at Nationals. And Marty lost to him 9-8. And he was on the verge of getting away for an escape to time. And it was a great match. But Marty just worked hard. He wasn't afraid to do that. And he bought into what we were doing. He bought into what I was teaching him. I think Marty, not having really had a coach through his younger years, if you will, it was a new and exciting thing to him to learn technique. And he learned a lot from the guys he was working out with too. So, but got the biggest heart, and he's got a lot of fun to be around. I'll tell you that. He was my associate van driver. We traveled, yeah, because he drove a van. And my wife and I say this all the time. You remember the movie The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke?
I sure do.
We swear up and down. And that is Marty.
Yeah, I can see why you say
He had
that.
he had a van that he had, and it was kind of funny. But we had the same kind of van we traveled in, and so we drove a long way. I mean, we were down in Florida, up in Tennessee. We were in Louisiana, and I couldn't do it all, So it was pretty. They're pretty gutty guys, Steve. When we were given a tin building that had been a diesel repair shop, and that was our workout facility. And the grease was so thick on the floor, we had to lay down Visqueen, obviously. And as we put our mat on top of it, we had a little propane heater in the corner, a little sink, and a little bathroom, and cleaned everything up. But they didn't care. And they just were willing to go to work and travel, pat shoulder to shoulder in that Ford van. And things get testy in there once in a while, but they all loved each other. And it all worked out, So this best days of my life.
Those kind of stories are, really warm your heart and make you realize just how special and awesome this sport is. But unfortunately, we got to get into the depressing part of it here in a second. And we got to talk about how, you guys were told by your athletic director, wrestling's no longer going to be a part of Chattahoochee Valley. And not only that, but suddenly Alabama drops, Auburn drops, Jacksonville State drops, Troy State drops. And then, that's just Alabama. And then around you, Florida, Central Florida, you had all these programs within probably a 5 to 10 year period, just dropping like flies. I mean, what was your thoughts and feelings when suddenly you realized that collegiate wrestling in the southeastern part of the United States is dying?
First off, I was shocked how fast the disease spread. I mean, I knew it was going to spread, but not that fast. And you mentioned even like in Florida, Brevard, Broward, Miami-Dade North, they were gone. Established programs. So to watch when Alabama dropped, that was the catalyst. And then when Pat Dye came in, he made it very clear that he wanted that wrestling room as a weight room. And that's what happened. And
Yeah.
and there's Tom Milkovich, one of the top 10 teams in the country. You know, and two guys that went on later to win national titles.
Yeah.
So Claire Anderson, I think it was Claire, won at Oklahoma State, and I think Zaleski maybe, Jimmy Zaleski, something like that, wrestled at Iowa.
I'd have to go back and look
Yeah,
through my
that's back. You weren't even born.
yeah, but I have written about it. I do have an article about it. I just don't have it memorized.
But
So,
there he has two guys who go back and they win national titles for other schools.
yeah.
You know, so it was so hard to watch the way it was dismantled. Just you know, guys lost scholarships, lost ways to get them way through school. You know, so put that on top of it, and the thing about it is, even my program, we didn't spend as much. My budget was $16,000 that was travel and all.
Wow.
That's right.
Wow.
And we made it go. We actually, the reason we exceeded our budget was because we flew out to nationals. Can't expect that. So, but you can't anticipate that. So, but we were still under budget from basketball and all, and those programs remained. The golf team at Chattahoochee Valley won 3 back-to-back national championships, and they dropped it.
Oh my.
Yep. You know, eventually tennis got dropped. You know, I mean, just Title IX. I understand it. I get it. I mean, but at that time, it was the biggest excuse for coaches in the Southeast, in particular, to eradicate wrestling programs. And it's not that they were competing for our fans. I mean, you know, we were lucky to have a handful of people. If we got 40 people, we were at a big crowd. You know, I mean, but Auburn had a pretty good following. Tommy did a lot to make that go, and Alabama did in a way too, and all. But Georgia dropping was, I think, Tennessee was the last one to stay in. I think they made it to 85, maybe
86.
86. Okay, I know it was somewhere in there.
Yeah, they had a national champion. And boy, his name's not coming in my head, but yeah,
was it Ethan Reeve?
Yeah, I think so. That sounds right. Or
I think it was Ethan Reeve.
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, the national champion. He upset Kevin Jackson, I think, in the quarterfinals at the Nationals that year. And then it's like, hey, we have a national champion, and then like a year or two later, let's drop the program. You know, it just makes no sense. But
you know, I'm so proud of UTC that they've hung in there. Jim Morgan was a great coach. He's deceased now, but we fucked the world, that man. But the president like that, they stuck with that program. They had a great following. They were D2 at the time, and they moved up to D1, obviously. But they just, man, they still draw great crowds and have some good guys, you know. So
yeah, I mean, I've been an aficionado, historian, fanatic, whatever people want to refer to me as, for most of my life. I fell in love with wrestling as a young kid, and studying wrestling and the history of wrestling over the years. You alluded to Title IX earlier, and Title IX, in a lot of ways, in and of itself, was not a bad thing. But what it became is it became this this weapon, this tool, if you will,
Right.
for athletic directors and football coaches and presidents of universities to have an excuse to get rid of wrestling or swimming
Yeah.
or diving or baseball or whatever in order to make more room, money, and resources for the
Yeah.
football program. Some people get angry at me for saying that, but I've also researched it. And I feel like I have a right to say what I'm saying because of all the studying I've done on it. And it's just a it's just kind of a like a sad state of affairs in a lot of way. But one of they always say there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And this is another thing I wanted to ask you about as well. We saw the wrestling programs, for a period of time, probably starting back in the early 70s, and they go up through the probably, just until, not all that long ago. And it's not like we're out of it yet, right? I
Right.
mean, holy cow, Cleveland State just announced they're done with wrestling.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So it's not like we're out of that fight yet. But in Alabama, Huntington, NCAA Division III added a couple of years back. Montevallo, they added wrestling to NCAA Division II.
National champion
Already, what's that?
and national champion last year.
Yeah, and had an NCAA Division II national champion. So that's the positive of it, right? That's the optimistic side of it. And just going over, Andrew over in
Yeah.
Georgia just
Georgia.
added wrestling, and they qualified all 10 of their wrestlers
Yeah.
and won the Gulf Atlantic District. Plus, they crowned their first All-American in year number one. So that's another question I have for you too. How have you felt so far watching? And not only Alabama and Georgia, we've seen wrestling in Kentucky. We now see wrestling in Florida. Got three programs in Florida. And I think it's only a matter of time before we see college wrestling in Mississippi and in Louisiana and other places like that. So what has that been like watching wrestling finally start to grow again?
Yeah. Well, my alma mater is Huntington, and I started Huntington's first program in 1970. Competed 2 years or 3 years, and we were fledgling, but to watch it get reinstated was just a thrill. I mean, you think it's dead and gone, and Montevallo has been an exciting deal. Troy also has a club, and there's a guy down there that's very active that's trying to make that go further. Auburn's got a club, Alabama's got a club, but that's all they've been. They've not gone beyond that. I think even Florida A&M has a club. So I heard ramblings that, it's ramblings, University of Alabama, or A&M, or whatever it is, no, University of Alabama Huntsville. University of Alabama Huntsville is looking, I think, but that's rambling, so I don't want
Yeah.
to, I don't
It's
know.
always fun
But
to
watch
hear that.
it coming back, the biggest thing now, Huntington's got men and women. The women's programs, fastest growing sport in the country. I used to say wrestling was the only thing left sacred to man, because, and I know that's, my wife doesn't like me saying that anyhow, but it's, and I love watching the girls. There's something, buddy. But Huntington's program's grown. I think she got 30 or 40 next year. That is going to be, in my opinion, if anything makes these colleges get back in the mix again, it's going to be women's wrestling, because you got to have one for one. You got to have one for one. So, that's all you can hope for, is that happens. I think that Mike Moyer, I've met Mike before. Mike does a great job of of getting these smaller schools in particular, like the Huntingtons and the Montepalas and all, to start programs based on helping their enrollment. It's all about, in Division III, it's all about butts in the seats. I mean, the more kids you put in the classroom, the more money you get. So if that's what Huntington has to base itself on, win or lose, good for them. But I'm watching guys compete. And he's had a few guys. He hadn't had a national qualifier yet, but Matt Oliver's he's a Jersey kid too, and was an All-American at Newberry. I think he'll eventually get somebody there. They're getting better recruits. I had some guys from Florida down in Miami area. Anthony Washington. Some guys from Georgia. I had some transfers from Alabama and UTC. We were the only JC program, so these guys were trying to either get the grades up or looking for a place to go because there wasn't a whole lot of else open. I opened my door up, So we started out the first morning with about 40, 45 guys, walk-ons and all. And after the 2 mile run up and down hills and Steube's Mountain, we were down to about 30 the next day. So not that I wanted it that way, but you got to thin things out sometimes.
That's right. Coach, there's one more thing I want to show you real quick before we let you go, if I can find it. I should have pulled it out earlier, but I'm going to step away from the computer for about 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes
Sure.
at the most. I want to show you something. I think you'll get a kick out of it. So give me 1 second. All right, so here we go. I'm going to show you something real quick. This, what I'm about to show you, is something that got a lot of mileage out of a young Steven Stonebreaker when he was a kid. You know what that is?
That's Marty.
That's Marty.
Yeah.
You can tell he was played with a lot.
A lot.
He's missing an arm.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but Marty's finishing maneuver was a top rope. He would come off the top rope and land a punch.
Yeah.
He usually did it, as you can tell, he usually did it going like this.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening is, I don't know if you know this story or not, but I was probably about 7 years old when Shawn Michaels threw him through the window.
Okay.
And I was so angry about that, so ticked off about that I took my figure. And, at the time, later on, they were having a feud back and forth. They were fighting for the Intercontinental Championship. And I had a match where that match, in my mind, Marty won the belt. And I had him come off the top rope like this and come down on Shawn with that fist. His arm broke right off. That's what happened. That's what happened in that story. But I figured you get a kick out of that. So I wanted to show you my Marty Jannetty action figure real quick.
Let me share a Marty Jannetty figure story with you real quick. It just happened.
Sure.
My grandsons, I have one 15, 10, and 8. And the 10 and 8-year-old, 2 years back, real quick, my former high school's wrestlers did a tribute to me. And in that, they were all teasing around. And I knew how much I wasn't really a fan of pro wrestling, but so they went to Walmart and got one of the rings and the belt and all that stuff and presented that to me. It had some wrestlers in it.
Yeah.
Well, at my house here, when the two younger ones come, they play with that thing all the time, go crazy. So the younger one, I showed them Marty on TV and all, and and showed them pictures and all. The young one says, "Can Mr. Marty get me one of his figures?" I said, "Well, I'll ask him, So sure enough, asked Marty, and he sent one still in the box and signed, to Chip, keep rocking Marty Jannetty. Don't dare touch it. Sits on his dresser. Don't even breathe on it. He is just. He asked me if they could get a can he get another? Because he might. Marty just had his other ankle done, so I think he's getting around a little better, but he's need to have it done for quite some time, both of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's, that's, I'd say one of the things that came to my mind too, when we won the Mid-South tournament, or not that one, when we finished third the second year, we were the only JC in that thing. And the coaches got together at the end and voted that they didn't want us back the next year because we were a junior college.
Dude.
And we finished third by less than 6 points. And we had beat Middle Tennessee State and by 1 point, 20-20 a duel, 21-20 a duel. Of course, beat Georgia Tech that year. And we finished third behind them by that. So I thought it was kind of funny. I mean, that's okay. I'll find somebody else to wrestle,
It happens that way sometimes.
Yeah, it's just, I'm just so glad to see some of the colleges starting back up again. And all really, I hope to see Alabama grow more. I'd love to see Florida grow more. I mean, there's some good high school wrestling in Florida, and Georgia's got some pretty good kids now too, man. I mean, so Caleb Hansen from Virginia Tech won nationals and stuff, and we got a couple Alabama kids go there, but we shall see, and we shall see. So I hope I'm around to see it in the SEC. But I'll tell you, Stephen, Bud Hannibal wrestled for me. He's the director of operations for the NCAA tournament. He's the head of the Georgia High School Athletic Association Wrestling tournament thing and all. He worked with Mike Moyer for a while and all. And apparently, Bud told me they had a meeting with the coach from Missouri and the coach from Oklahoma when, they were going into the SEC and all. And those two coaches said that the chances of the SEC starting wrestling back are about as good as us dropping wrestling. So that's like, and the coaches, they don't want it. They just don't want. They don't want it, and I'm sure it's impacts their scholarships and stuff. But what about the kids who are like me and it was 118 pounds soaking wet? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why refuse? Why refuse somebody that education and a chance to do something for themselves? I don't get it. So.
I've been trying to figure that out I've been writing about wrestling now for, I don't know, 25 years or so. And I've been trying to figure that out for a long time myself. But unfortunately, Coach, we are running out of time. On behalf of John Thompson, number one, I do want to thank you for being our guest today. It's been a pleasure. And we hope that you're able to watch a lot of wrestling this year. Hopefully, I don't know if you still get out of the house or not, but
yeah, I'm getting around. I have to excuse my leash. I think I told you what happened with that. But,
right, yeah.
Just hey, I'm here. So
yeah, absolutely. It's guys like you that make our sport the rewarding and great aspect of our lives that it is. So once again, I'm gonna stop the interview now, but we want to thank you again, Coach Steube, and hopefully talk to you in the future.
You better keep writing those articles, buddy. Thank you.